Find the inverse of the function, then state its domain and range. All right, so what we want to focus on is the last two statements I have written here in green. Basically that the domain and range of an inverse switch. And what that actually means in this particular case is that if you want to find the inverse function, so if this is f, right, then f inverse will actually be equal to the set of points that has switched the x and y components, right? So basically, when you had -2, 5, you will now have 5, -2. And when you had -1, 3, you will now have 3, -1. And when you had 0, 1, you will now have 1, 0. And where you had 1, -1, you will now have -1, 1. And lastly, where you had 2, -3, you will now have -3, 2. So this function is the inverse of the function above, and you'll notice that its domain and range have switched. So the domain for f inverse is now what? 5, 3, 1, -1, and -3, while its range is basically -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So remember, the range is essentially the y component of the points, and the domain is essentially the x component of the points. And if you know that a function and its inverse switch the domain and range, then essentially all you have to do is take these points and do what we did, which is to reverse them, making the x part the y part and the y part the x part.